Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of the Geopolitical Pickle podcast. Today we're really happy to have with us His Excellency Hideo Suzuki. He's the ambassador of Japan in the Czech Republic, and today we will be talking with him about security in East Asia and the security threats that Japan is facing right now. So thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thanks again for joining us. So to start off with, I just wanted to talk about very generally, what are some of the constraints and opportunities that Japan has because of its unique position, and how do these govern its external relations and its foreign policy?
Well, thank you for the very good introductory question. I think I talk about what are the principles that govern the Japanese foreign policy. Japan has been the country that has most benefited of the free and open democratic system, free and open trade system established after the Second World War and the Bretton Woods institutions. So our ultimate goal is to keep this rule-based order, international rule-based order, predictable and open to every stakeholders, so that we can continue this sustainable world trade system and the political institution. So we are very much committed to the multilateral system. We are living in this world of multifaceted layered system. And on the top of that, we have the United Nations, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And from January this year, we are a non-permanent member of the Security Council of the United Nations. This is very important for us. This is where we can get our foreign policy locked in the world issues, the most important world issues, where we can reflect the voice of Asia in this world institution. So United Nations is really a very important factor in the Japanese foreign policy. That's why we have a huge mission in Europe, and we have one of the most experienced and talented ambassador, permanent representative in Europe. Second, we especially uphold this rule-based order in the Pacific. Our aim is to, as I said, to keep this free trade system, free democratic system. We are a country of islands made of more than 6,000 big and small islands. Whatever we import, it's through the sea. Whatever we export is going over the sea. So we have to secure the freedom of navigation, the freedom of sea lane communication, import of energy, export of industrial products, etc., etc. So this is extremely important. And in the heart of that, of course, we are trying to have good relations with our immediate neighbors, Russia, China, Korea, but also ASEAN is a key factor in our foreign policy. This year, it's 50 years anniversary of relations between Japan and ASEAN. It started with a kind of agreement of rubber trade with these countries, but now it has developed into a full-scale set of cooperation from governance to also to disaster relief or climate change, energy transition, all these things. And it is very important for Japan that the ASEAN countries keep their kind of ownership in what they do. They stand on their own feet, and that they safeguard their autonomy and sovereignty. This is quite important. On this occasion, the 50th anniversary, we are having in December a special summit between Japan and ASEAN. And we would like to reboost once again our cooperation and maybe find new areas of cooperation. But all this, it's not only Japan. It's not only with Japan that we are doing that. We are, of course, cooperating with the United States, with Australia, by the way. Australia is becoming really a central partner in all this cooperation with Indo-Pacific or ASEAN. But Europe is also a very reliable partner. So we welcome very much the involvement of European Union and its member countries to be engaged in many ways in the Indo-Pacific, ASEAN, East Asia, whatever, in building this or safeguarding this multilateral system based on rules, based on predictable rules, international recognized rules, and connect also these countries to the world. It's very important. The situation of these countries are very diverse. It's nothing that you can see in Europe, from a very developed country to a rather landlocked country that have a lot of challenges in integrating themselves to the world. So we call connectivity, and we have an agreement with the European Union to develop connectivity in the world. So we have really to make this something more tangible and real, to make this multilateral system that we are really putting together with the Europeans something that will work in the Indo-Pacific. This is our goal. This is what we call the free and open Indo-Pacific, or for it, in short.
Thank you very much, because I think it's a really good outlook of like how does Japan see the world and everything. We'd like to go a little bit in the regional part of Japan's foreign policy and security policy. What are the threats that right now Japan conceives as threats in its surrounding seas and around the islands? We know that during President Abe's government, the approach on defense policy was changed. We would like to know a little bit what have been these changes, and also if with current President Kishida, we're going to continue with this trend in Japan, or if the government is going to take a different approach.
Well, there's a very good continuity between the government of Prime Minister Abe and the current Prime Minister Kishida. Is to take the reality very much seriously into our strategy. Prime Minister Abe has launched this initiative in his first government. Of course, the Japan-US alliance is central, is key, a crucial element of security policy, but Prime Minister Abe has the big vision of partnering with NATO. And he chose Brussels and the NATO headquarters as his first visit as Prime Minister. Normally, a Japanese Prime Minister visits first Washington, D.C., but he chose Brussels. So from that, we have developed a very strong partnership with the NATO countries. Now we are called AP4, which is Asia Pacific 4 partnership countries. We have invited Prime Minister Kishida has been invited to the Madrid summit, and he has shown that there will be also some Japanese presence in the next Vilnius summit. So there is this big continuity. What Prime Minister Abe has done is to set a full set of new legislations which deepens more collaboration with our main ally, the United States, and especially to introduce an element of collective self-defense, which means that if the United States is attacked under certain conditions. The legislation set up very strict conditions, but if the United States is attacked, the Japanese self-defense forces can help, can get into the situation and defend the United States armies or navies or net forces, even if Japan itself, Japanese territory, is not directly attacked. So this is like NATO,
Like Article 5.
Article 5.
Yeah.
This has been a huge political debate, a lot of controversies, but with a strong will, he pushed through, and now it's there. Prime Minister Kishida has continued on that, and now he has adopted last December a new national security strategy. And by adopting that, he also decided that we are going to almost double the defense expenditure in 5 years. Now we are spending almost 1% of GDP into defense. In 5 years, it will be 2%. This is a huge leap forward. I think that this is something that is needed where we see what is happening in the Pacific. And I come back to your question about what are the threats that Japan is facing. When you see this new national security strategy, we see 3 actors. And first is North Korea. North Korea, with its fantastic development of its missile capabilities, and possibly with more nuclear capabilities, is a direct, imminent threat to Japan. More and more. This is very clear. They have longer range missiles. They have the variety of type of missiles, or at least they pretend. They have diverse platforms from which to shoot their missiles. Moving trucks, shooting from the trains, and still not completed, but some capabilities are launching from submarines. So we have to be ready for that. And for that, we have the one missile defense system that we developed with the United States. But if taking into account these recent developments, maybe this missile defense is not perfect. If the North Koreans launch missiles, dozens of missiles at the same time, they are capable, then our defense system could be saturated. So in this case, we have to counterattack the base from which they shoot the missile. This is a capability that we didn't have until now. So we are going to extend the range of our missile that we have to reach these enemy bases. This is a huge program that we need a lot of money, of course. And for the time being, we are planning to purchase 400 US-made Tomahawk cruise missiles, waiting the time that we can produce our own missiles. So this is one thing. Second, China. We say in the national security strategy that China is a very strategic challenge. When we see the formidable buildup of their naval capacity or their air force capacity, we had to really build a strong deterrence together with the United States. We don't want to fight a war, we want to deter. And what deterrence means, that we have to show any aggression will not succeed. That means we have really to defend our territories, its small islands even, and we are strengthening our military presence in the what we call the southwestern islands, Okinawa, Amami, and all the archipelago of small islands very close to Taiwan. So that especially the missile defense system or to a reconnaissance system, etc. We have to also to acknowledge that China is challenging daily our sovereignty over the Senkaku Islands. I'm sure you have heard about that. Every day, almost every week, there is intrusion of Chinese public ships, governmental ships, either in the territorial water or in the contiguous zone, just next to territorial water. And this is a very dangerous behaviors that could spark any kind of tension. Third, Russia. This is the position of Russia is the biggest change in the national security strategy compared to the former national strategy that in the 2013. Russia is now perceived first in the European continent a threat to Europe, and in Asia, it's now perceived also an element of grave security concern, especially because more and more their activities are linked with Chinese activities. More and more, especially after the war in Ukraine started, we see more and more joint flights between Russia and China all around the Japanese archipelago, or joint navigation between Russian Navy and Chinese Navy, or they around the Japanese islands. This is something that we have to take into account. We see also more activities of the Russian armed forces around what the Japanese northern territories that Russia is occupying illegally since the end of the World War II. Not only a lot of exercises in the Japan Sea, again together with the Chinese, more and more they are building up their military posture in terms of SSBN, the big submarines launching missiles, or the most modern frigates equipped with missiles Kinjal that they use also in Ukraine. So these are the challenges that we're facing, and these are the challenges that for which we're preparing with this new security strategy and the new defense budget, which is going to be doubled in 5 years.
You took away my next question, but just building on that, like these provocative actions by China, by Russia, even by North Korea as well, how do you see the best way to respond to these? Is it through the strategic security alliances, by building up a policy of deterrence, or is there a chance to engage in dialogue with the Chinese? I think probably the Russians is more difficult, and North Koreans not at all, but I think there's varying levels. So does then Japan try and engage in dialogue with China to prevent, as you say, a miscalculation or an issue like when they're going into encroaching on Japanese territorial waters?
Yes. It's clearly yes. Having said all what I said, the national security strategy puts diplomacy in the first and foremost. So we are trying to have dialogues at the highest levels with the Chinese. The foreign minister, or they visited recently China. between Prime Minister Kishida and President Xi Jinping. We don't have yet bilateral visits, but they are meeting in many occasions, G20 and other international conferences. So we are keeping these dialogues. We are trying to having a straightforward dialogue with them, trying to find ways of constructive cooperation in some areas, while of course we say what we have to say. Incursion into the Senkaku waters, or this rather untransparent military buildup by the Chinese People's Liberation Army, these kind of things. So we do. With, as I said, with Russians, it's becoming a little bit difficult because we have had very regular talks with the Russians. Because part of this Northern Territory issues, we had the peace treaty talks, etc. But after Ukraine, they shut down these talks unilaterally. So we are a little bit without talking to them for the last 1 year, let's say. North Korea, it's very hermetic country. I think that, but at the same time, every prime minister, Abe or Kishida, say publicly that they are ready to talk with Kim Jong-un directly without any preconditions. Because we have a lot of issues with him. Not only these missiles, but also the abductees issues, many others. So we keep this position and to talk with them, but it seems that they are not ready to do that.
I would like, we've talked about the challenges, and I want to talk about countries that are rather friendlier with Japan in the region, particularly two, which are interestingly enough, still Japan has grievances or at least clashes because of the islands. Both of them, one is South Korea and the other one is Taiwan. How does, as in with China or with Russia, this claim on sovereignty over certain islands leads to collision? How is it shaping the relationship of Japan with South Korea and Japan with Taiwan?
Well, with South Korea, the new president, Yoon Suk-yeol, has clearly put his priority having good security cooperation with Japan. And he says it everywhere. Even during his visit to Washington, D.C., his statement in the Congress, he clearly said that the trilateral cooperation between Japan and Korea, United States, and Japan is essential, and he would like to do that. So we are very much appreciate this kind of statement, and the visit to the leaders, the president of Korea to Japan and Prime Minister of Japan to Korea is happening. It's been a long time it didn't happen. So we are very, very positive, and we'd like to continue on this note. President Korea has been very instrumental in solving some of the history issues. And this is a very good step forward to put forward the security cooperation. In East Asia, Japan and Korea are the only two advanced democracies. We have to cooperate to cope with the different threats and challenges, especially North Korea. We have to exchange information about their activities, especially how we are going to share information about their missile launches, how to predict these activities. It's really a common issue common security issue that we have to tackle. Since President Yoon is in power, the trilateral military exercises between Japan, US, and Korea has resumed. We had recently a naval exercise between the three. So things are going step by step in the right way. So we really want to keep in this way. Taiwan, of course, we don't have a formal diplomatic relations, but we have a strong presence in terms of economy, in terms of business. We have a representation. It's not an embassy, we have a representation. And Taiwan is really a very close partner in every field. We think that Taiwan has also its role in international arena. COVID and public healthcare is one good example of that. They managed very well the pandemic in the during all these years. I think these experiences could benefit all of us.
I have one more question just about security partnerships. So obviously we're talking about now South Korea, US as a trilateral partnership. We also have Quad, which I think has seen increased importance in terms of security. I mean, it's very important for Australia's foreign policy now and our new defense outlook with Japan as a major partner. And then with the Philippines recently signing an agreement with the US on multilateral defense. Obviously, these are all in response to China's rising naval capacity and posture. Do you think that they'll be effective over the long run in preventing the rise of China and actually maybe at one day being able to bring China to the table for a negotiation and sort of a integration into the system?
Well, first of all, we very much value the Quad partnership between Australia, your country, and United States, India, and Japan. It's a very, very valuable framework, not only from the defense perspective, but also from the various economic issues, social issues. We have tackled the COVID pandemic together with the Quad. We have invested a lot in supporting the vaccine industry in India so that they can produce more vaccines that could be exported to the ASEAN countries and other Asian countries. So this is developing as a real kind of one big element of the structural governance in the Indo-Pacific. So we very much value the participation of Australia, a very big partner for us. So, well, I think that, the specificity of Indo-Pacific, security in the Pacific, is that it's not a monolithic structure like you have here in Europe. Here you have the European Union and the NATO that covers a huge, it's almost geographical Europe, almost. Not yet, but Indo-Pacific is completely different. The only very formal alliance is between Japan and US, Korea, US, and Kansas. The others are more or less of partnership of variable geometry, sometimes bilateral, sometimes trilateral. For example, the agreement between Philippines and US is very much welcome, but the shape of this bilateral structure is very different from one another. So the efforts that we have to do is very complex. As I said in the beginning, we should never forget that we should put ASEAN into the center. So we have this bilateral agreements, but every time we have the feedback this in the ASEAN context. That's the only way. That's the only way to be credible. And, ASEAN is having a role of stitching all this individual agreement into one big concept. So, that's why we consider our cooperation with ASEAN extremely important. ASEAN is not a military structure, but it's a forum where these different layers of defense framework, defense structures are anchored. So these kind of efforts is extremely important for us. But involvement of other partners, like Europeans, are also adding a lot of credibility and a lot of legitimacy in our efforts. That's why we welcome the European engagement, like the French or Germans, others, to come to the Indo-Pacific, either militarily or in the economic and trade area. We have seen Czech Prime Minister Fiala doing the big travel, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam. This is a very good message coming from the Europe, that they are willing to engage in the ASEAN and in the Pacific. So these kind of multilateral efforts is something that we have to promote. We'll discuss about that in the G7 in Hiroshima, that is starting now, to which European Union is an integral part of it. Von der Leyen and Michel will be there. So G7 is playing a very big role in stitching Europe, United States, and in the Pacific, represented by Japan, in giving a push to the world position on Russia. I think the G7 is the best coordination arena to have a unified approach to the war in Ukraine, but also not only in different challenges in the world. So we are very proud of being the chair, the presidency this year, and I'm sure that we'll come up with good solutions.
That is good. I have one question that arose from what you were mentioning at the importance of ASEAN and the importance that Japan gives to ASEAN, but at the same time to other partners like the EU and the United States. We saw in recent months, recent months, that the Belt and Road Initiative pushed by China is not giving the results that they expected to have, and there's an increased trade cooperation between the European Union, for example, and Japan and other Indo-Pacific actors. Do you think it would be possible, or would Japan be looking forward to have some sort of easier trade agreements with the European Union, for example, through ASEAN, so that it would engage with the entire community? Or do you think it is something that will develop more, as we were mentioning, in bilateral agreements with the Indo-Pacific countries?
Well, as I said, Indo-Pacific is a kind of structure that very multi-layered. So bilaterals, plurilaterals, partnership, coalition, everything is welcome. It adds to that one layer to what is existing, and the symbiosis or synergies of these different players is extremely beneficial, and we should enter that. So we can have bilateral cooperation. We can have also more European Union approach. We have already an EPA, Japan-European kind of free trade agreement, which is having a very, very good result since it has been signed in 2018. In Asia, we have different type of trade agreement that works in synergy with the Japan-European Union free trade agreement. This is one thing. Another thing is the connectivity partnership that Paris Harbor signed with the European Union, which opens the way to the collaboration between Japan and European Union and European member states to connect, as I said earlier, connect these people, these countries in the Pacific to the world. How to help them in their access to the world market by leveling up, raising their standard, or giving them access to the seaports, upgrading the seaports so that they can have more room for these countries, these kind of things. Another thing is the Green Alliance that we have signed, I think, 2 years ago. In the Pacific is a huge market for energy. It's the growth center of the world. It means there is a huge necessity of energy. And of course, we want this energy to be clean so that they can produce something that is sustainable. And that's good for us, good for them. So how we are going to make cleaner the existing energy, how we're going to provide additional energy in a cleanest way as possible. This is where Japanese technology, European technologies, US technologies could cooperate together to have the right answer. And I think it's not a single answer or one size fits all. It must be, the situation in the Pacific countries are quite different from one to another. Landlocked countries, ocean countries, very dry country to very wet country. So they have different weather conditions, they have different land situations. So we have to adapt our solutions to their situation. And we have to come up with a variety of solutions so that they can pick what they want. For that, we have to have a very big coalition of technologies. That's another way for the Europeans to come into the Pacific.
Well, thank you very much for your time. We've got one more question which we like to ask people, which is always, so now you're ambassador of Japan to Czech Republic. What was your kind of career path to get you to this position, and what inspired you to pursue this career in the first place?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm very honored to serve in the Czech Republic. It's a very beautiful country, but also a dynamic country with core features with Japan as a very traditional industrial manufacturing country. So we have a lot of things in common, a big interest to Japan. And so I'm very, very, very honored and very excited to be here. So before that, I have been posted in France, where I started my career. I've been to the United States, Washington, D.C., just at the moment where the first Obama administration started up, then Vietnam and Korea. So very much involved in Indo-Pacific issues, either development assistance or security, maritime security. That Vietnam is facing a huge challenge on South China Sea vis-a-vis China. So all this, I think I'm very happy to coming back to Europe with all these experiences. I think I can serve as a gateway, kind of, for the Czech people to the Indo-Pacific, whatever area they're engaged in, government or culture or business. So that's how I see ourselves.
Fantastic.
That's really nice. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Suzuki, for giving us this interview. And for you guys, we will see you again in the next episode of the Geopolitical Pickle. Ciao.
The Geopolitical Pickle is created by Ronan Wordsworth and Juan Francisco Muñoz, two geopolitical studies postgrads from Charles University in Prague, Czech Republic. Follow us on Instagram at The Geopolitical Pickle or Twitter at The Geopickle for more content, and follow us on every podcast platform.